11 inches of rain is forecast for eastern North Carolina from a system still sitting over the Gulf. Storm surge of 2 to 4 feet is possible from coastal Louisiana all the way to the Alabama-Florida border. Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York City all sit inside a 5% tornado probability this Wednesday. Tropical Storm Bertha is organizing in the Gulf tonight, and it is threatening 2 separate disasters simultaneously. South of the center, storm surge and tropical winds target coastal Alabama, Louisiana, and the Florida Panhandle. At the 7-minute mark, we will walk through the flood data that has quietly alarmed forecasters for 48 hours. As of this evening, Bertha is a 35-mile-per-hour tropical storm crawling northwest at just 3 miles per hour. Storm surge watches are already posted from coastal Louisiana through Alabama and into the Florida Panhandle tonight. All right, let's take this from the Gulf Coast northward because this is a 2-part story. Coastal Louisiana sits inside the highest probability zone for storm surge, 2 to 4 feet possible here. Wind gusts above 40 miles per hour carry a 30 to 40% probability along Louisiana's coastline through Wednesday. Coastal Louisiana to the Alabama-Florida border, 2 to 4 feet of storm surge is now in the forecast. Coastal Alabama and Baldwin County are under storm surge watches. Peak timing is Wednesday morning at high tide. Southern Alabama and coastal Mississippi sit inside that 2 to 4 foot surge zone. Prepare now, not when it arrives. Along the Florida Panhandle and Big Bend region, 1 to 3 feet of surge remains a threat through Wednesday. Outer rain bands from Bertha are already reaching the Florida Panhandle tonight. Gusty winds and heavy rain expected. Red flags are flying now at every Gulf beach. Double red flags go up Tuesday through at least Wednesday. Double red flags mean do not enter the water. Rip currents are life-threatening along the entire Gulf Coast. Knee-deep is too deep during a tropical system event on the Gulf. Please heed those beach flags. Coastal areas east of the I-65 corridor are looking at 1 to 4 inches of rainfall through Wednesday. Move further inland, say along Highway 84, and rain totals drop below an inch for much of those communities. Track matters enormously. Northward shifts bring more rain inland. Southward shifts keep the heaviest totals near shore. Water temperatures along Bertha's path are running at 30 to 31 degrees Celsius. That is upper 80s Fahrenheit. A warm core eddy from Cuba is deepening the ocean heat content directly along Bertha's approach corridor. Northerly wind shear running at moderate to unfavorable levels remains Bertha's primary limiting factor heading into Tuesday. Bertha is crawling northwest at just 3 miles per hour tonight, slower than a casual walking pace. Dry air has suppressed Bertha's convection for 36 hours, keeping the system lopsided and disorganized on satellite imagery. Signs are emerging that convection is starting to wrap more tightly around the center of circulation on radar tonight. Once convection wraps and holds, latent heat release tightens the vortex, and the intensification process accelerates from there. Model guidance currently spreads from the Florida Panhandle west all the way to Texas, an enormous track range. National Hurricane Center is forecasting a maximum intensity of 45 to 50 miles per hour upper-end tropical storm. One hurricane model, the HMON, runs this significantly stronger, showing 85 miles per hour by Wednesday night. 45 to 85 miles per hour, that spread tells you exactly how uncertain this intensity forecast remains. Weaker storm equals faster northward track. Stronger storm stays over water longer and drifts further west toward Texas. Wind gusts near 30 miles per hour are already expected along the coastline by Tuesday afternoon. Tuesday night into Wednesday morning carries the highest risk of tropical storm force winds for the immediate coastline. If the center approaches the coast, some bridges near beach communities could close to traffic by Tuesday night. Plan alternate routes now. Do not wait until bridges are already shutting down on Tuesday evening. Bertha's rainfall along the immediate Gulf Coast is modest, 1 to 4 inches for most coastal areas. Those highest rain totals are actually expected to stay offshore over the Gulf, not over land. That is what makes this system so unusual. The heaviest rain is hundreds of miles from the center. But here is the number changing the entire story, and most coverage is completely missing it right now. Greenville, North Carolina, 11 inches of rain by Friday morning. That is not a Gulf Coast number. Fayetteville at 8 inches. Columbia, South Carolina, around 5. Virginia Beach also sitting in the crosshairs of this. Blend of all models shows 6 inches across eastern North Carolina, and that estimate is likely conservative. Drop your city and current conditions below, especially if you are in the Carolinas, Georgia, or Virginia tonight. So how does a tropical storm in the Gulf produce nearly a foot of rain in North Carolina? It comes down to one dynamic: a cold front stalling over the Carolinas with tropical moisture piling in. The cold front is dropping toward the East Coast and is forecast to stall over the Carolinas by Wednesday. Meanwhile, Bertha is pumping tropical moisture northward through Georgia and up the southeast corridor toward that stalled boundary. Tropical moisture meeting a stalled boundary, that combination is what produces training thunderstorms and catastrophic local rainfall totals. Training thunderstorms when storm after storm rolls over the exact same area. Like boxcars on a train track. One cell drops 2 inches. The next one fires immediately. The ground never gets a chance to drain. Precipitation water values across the Carolinas are forecast at 2 to 2.5 inches, extraordinarily high for this region. With 2.5-inch precipitable water values, any thunderstorm that fires is capable of producing multiple inches per hour. This flooding setup is forecast to persist from Wednesday through the weekend, potentially into early next week. That persistence is what takes a bad flooding event and turns it into a potentially historic one. Bertha is expected to keep strengthening through Tuesday and into early Wednesday before hitting wind shear on final approach. WRF hurricane model brings the center ashore in the far western Florida panhandle by Tuesday night. HMON hurricane model is far more aggressive, 85 miles per hour. Southward track staying over water toward Louisiana. Euro ensembles cluster most members between the Florida panhandle and coastal Louisiana. No clear majority track emerges. Google DeepMind ensemble guidance mirrors that trend. Most members come ashore along the central Gulf Coast. None of those ensemble members are particularly strong, and that is actually important for the flooding story. Weaker Bertha means faster northward motion, and faster motion means more tropical moisture funneling into the Carolina setup. Max intensity window on most solutions closes somewhere around Tuesday night to early Wednesday morning before shear increases. Bertha is threading through 30 to 31 Celsius water, the warmest in the entire Atlantic Basin right now. A warm core eddy drifting up from Cuba is deepening that heat content directly along Bertha's approach path. Warm core eddies supply fuel below the surface layer, energy that standard SST maps do not show. Here is what flood forecasters have been quietly flagging for 48 hours, and it is not getting coverage. Precipitable water values of 2 to 2.5 inches are already confirmed across the southeast corridor tonight. 2.5-inch precipitable water in this region during this time of year. That is extreme atmospheric loading. Weather Prediction Center shows a 15% flash flood risk for Wednesday, with a moderate upgrade being discussed. That risk holds Thursday and Friday with minimal movement, 3 consecutive days of elevated flash flood threat. Euro Ensemble puts 11 inches on Greenville. Blend of all models shows 6 for eastern North Carolina. Backbuilding new cells forming continuously upwind of a stalled boundary. Cycling over the same geography repeatedly. Each cell drops 2 to 3 inches before the next one fires. The ground never drains fast enough. Shortwaves diving along the trough will act as repeated triggers, pulling tropical moisture northward through the entire week. Once this pattern locks in, it is very difficult to break. Models show it persisting through the weekend. Stalled front plus tropical moisture plus repeating shortwaves. That combination is the major event we are watching. Weather Prediction Center has a 15% probability of flash flooding Wednesday across the Carolinas. Slight risk territory. That same threat holds Thursday and Friday, 72 hours of continuous flash flood risk across the same geography. Wednesday carries a level 3 enhanced risk area for severe weather from the Storm Prediction Center, alongside the flooding. 45% probability of damaging winds inside the enhanced risk zone, a significant and notable threshold. 5% tornado probability is in place across some of the most densely populated areas on the East Coast. Here is the part that needs more attention. The cities inside that 5% tornado zone: Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, all sitting inside the 5% tornado probability area this Wednesday. Euro ensembles show a consistent flooding signature for 48 hours straight, but Bertha's track and intensity remain unsettled. WRF model takes the center into the Florida Panhandle Tuesday night, noticeably east of the NHC's current forecast. HMON model pushes it to 85 miles per hour by Wednesday, then fades on approach to the Louisiana coastline. Euro ensemble members spread from Panhandle, Florida through coastal Louisiana, no clear majority on a single track. Yesterday, some guidance peaked this at 60 miles per hour. This morning, that number stepped back significantly. Trending weaker means faster northward track, and that amplifies the Carolina flooding risk rather than reducing it. This is the irony of this event. A weaker storm may actually produce the more dangerous overall outcome. NHC forecast currently shows Bertha making landfall on the central Gulf Coast, weakening to a depression by Friday. Most model guidance agrees max intensity arrives within the next 36 hours, before wind shear increases substantially. Once that window closes, wind shear increases, dry air returns, and the system deteriorates on approach to the coast. Louisiana and Texas face the highest uncertainty. Does Bertha hold together offshore or fall apart on approach? If the system degrades over Louisiana, as most models suggest, Texas sees dramatically less wind and surge impact. If Bertha stays over open water longer, Texas faces a stronger and more organized system at landfall. That open water Texas track requires escaping the coastline. Most model members currently do not support that solution. Same low pressure system, same tropical energy. Two completely separate weather crises in two completely different places simultaneously. South of the center surge and coastal flooding, north and east training thunderstorms and a flooding crisis. Northerly wind shear pushes heavy convection south over the Gulf, funneling tropical moisture north toward that stalled front. Precipitable water exceeding 2 inches is confirmed from coastal Georgia through the Virginia tidewater as of this evening. With 2+ inch precipitable water, a training complex can dump 3 to 5 inches in under an hour. That is how 6 inches becomes 11 one-band stalls in place for 12 hours instead of 2. Here is the timing. Severe weather pushes into the D.C. to New York City corridor around dinner time on Wednesday. As severe weather clears Wednesday night, the flooding machine activates across the Carolinas and persists through the weekend. Many of the highest totals will fall overnight. Training storms backbuild while the region is asleep. Flash flood warnings will activate overnight in the Carolinas in communities that rarely flood under normal conditions. Scenario A, the front moves faster than expected. Eastern North Carolina sees 3 to 4 inches, not 11. Scenario B, front stalls as modeled. 6 to 11 inches falls across eastern North Carolina through Sunday. Scenario C, the boundary locks further south than forecast, moisture holds, and totals exceed 12 inches locally. Scenario B carries the highest probability at this point. Scenario C remains a real possibility for coastal North Carolina. For Bertha's Gulf Coast impact, 3 scenarios also exist based on track and the final intensity ceiling. Low-end Bertha makes early landfall in the Panhandle. Surge limited to 1 to 2 feet along the coast. Middle scenario, NHC track verifies. Central Gulf Coast sees 2 to 4 feet of surge and 40-mile-per-hour gusts. High-end HMON is correct. Bertha strengthens to 85 miles per hour offshore before weakening and hitting Louisiana harder. Texas carries the highest uncertainty. It depends entirely on whether Bertha survives the Gulf Coast interaction intact. If the system degrades over Louisiana, as most models suggest, Texas sees manageable rainfall and minimal wind threat. If you are in eastern North Carolina, Virginia, or coastal Alabama, drop your current conditions below. Every model run through the week will be tracked daily updates as this flooding and tropical setup evolves. Watch for a moderate risk upgrade over the next 48 hours that would significantly escalate this threat. When 11-inch totals begin appearing in multi-model consensus, not just the Euro, we escalate coverage immediately. We are not here to scare anyone. We are here to make sure your family has a plan. Know your surge zone. Peak timing is Wednesday morning at high tide along the central Gulf Coast, Carolinas, and Virginia. Do not underestimate this flooding setup. 6 to 11 inches over 3 days is significant. Here is the genuine good news. Once this pattern breaks by early next week, quiet weather returns. High pressure builds in after Monday, typically bringing 5 to 7 days of quieter conditions across the region. Bertha's energy dissipates rapidly once inland, so the tropical component of this threat ends by Thursday or Friday. After a multi-day event of this magnitude, that quieter stretch is genuinely welcome for the entire region. If you know someone in eastern North Carolina or the Virginia coast, share this with them tonight. A direct heads up from someone they trust is worth more than 10 push notifications they will swap away. Coastal Alabama and Louisiana, check on neighbors in low-lying areas or surge zones before Wednesday morning arrives. 2 to 4 feet of surge sounds manageable until it is inside your front door at midnight Wednesday. Notifications on. We will track every update on Bertha and the Carolina flooding threat through the weekend. Like and subscribe if this is helping you prepare. Daily updates are coming through the entire event. Next update comes with Tuesday morning's model runs, which should clarify Bertha's track and intensity significantly. By then, we should know whether the moderate flash flood upgrade materializes for eastern North Carolina and Virginia. 35 miles per hour and building, 31 Celsius sea surface temps, 11 inches of rain for the Carolinas. Same storm, same energy. 2 completely different disasters. That is the setup we are now tracking. Bertha organizing in the Gulf. A flood machine loading over the southeast. Both threats are real and imminent. We are tracking every development as this pattern unfolds. This story gets more complex before it gets simpler. Stay safe out there, especially if you are in a surge zone or a flood-prone area through Wednesday. We will see you in the next update with the latest model data on Bertha and the Carolinas.